Hey, and welcome to the Meditations and Musings podcast. I'm Elena Lipson. I'm a mama, I'm a wife, and I'm the founder of the Divine Self-Care Circle membership and the Virtual Retreat Academy. I don't believe that you have to sacrifice your body, your health, or your family in order to create true abundance and prosperity. I believe in living based on the divine feminine metrics of success, and these include pleasure, play, ease, grace, and a slower pace. Each week, I'll bring you 1 to 2 new episodes. One of these will be a guided meditation that you don't have to do on the meditation pillow, and the other will be a conversation to help you access your inner wisdom, to ignite abundance, and inspire others to do the same. I invite you to join me on this journey back to the magic of a divinely aligned and well cared for you. And now, join me for today's episode.
Hello and welcome to today's Meditations and Musings podcast. This is Elena Lipson, your Divine Self-Care Mentor, and I'm so thrilled to have you back. We are now over the hump of the 50 episode mark, and I am way on track to meet my goal of creating like a marathon podcast, meaning I'm not in it for the sprint. I'm in it for the long term. I want you and me and everyone else to have a long-term relationship. And so I am so excited to continue the conversation. It feels like, in fact, I saw a quote this morning. Sometimes people or clients I work with are a little bit worried that they're going to run out of content when they commit to showing up fully in a consistent way, whether it's Facebook Lives or Instagram Stories or a podcast or anything else. And the crazy thing is, it's completely backwards. It's hashtag backwards. It's like once you start creating, once you are fully into creating something and you commit to showing up consistently, whether it's creating an art practice or a journaling practice or writing or whatever it is, it's like you open up a creative outlet. And as soon as you create the container for it and really set the intention to show up consistently, you just start to create more. The floodgates open. It was a beautiful quote by Maya Angelou about how when you start creating and being creative, that literally it's like a river of abundance of creativity just flows in. And so people sometimes sit and wait to create until they're inspired. And for some people that might work. I tend to work that way in some aspects of my life and business as well. However, what I find most often is that once you commit and you show up, inspiration arrives. It's like the divine message is just keep showing up. And that does not mean by any means that every single thing you create is going to be genius. I'd love to say that every single podcast episode has been incredible. To me, it has been, but perhaps to you, it hasn't been the most incredible. You'll find what's relevant for you and you'll take that with you. And my hope is that as I continue creating, that it continues to resonate more and more, and that the width and the breadth of the content that I create, of course, is all in the container of self-care, of divine feminine metrics of success. But it's about life. It's about business and the bedroom, right? It's all of it. You're not just a one-dimensional person. So the more I continue to show up, the more I continue to trust the creative process, the more I hit record and just start, the creativity does show up. So I want to invite you to really see your own endeavors as a river instead of like a pond, right? A pond has a limited amount of water that it can hold, but a river, it's endless. You can just keep following it. And of course, you know, it leads to this massive abundance of ocean, right? This unlimited abundance of ocean. So I want you to just start. Whatever you're doing, commit to doing it and maybe track the progress. And you'll see, like I tell my son, you know, when you start something new, a new skill, 100 days from now, 20 days from now, it'll be better than it was today. So you're not competing with anyone else. It's not a competition. It's a journey, right? So as long as you can continue showing up to yourself, to your creative process, then you will continue to maybe even astound yourself at what you can come up with. So whatever you're dreaming of doing, do it, because this life is short and sweet. It can feel long when you're not creating, when you're not doing that thing that your soul is calling forth to you to create, it can feel very long when you're living in resentment of what could be, instead of just deciding to embrace what is and creating from a place of trust. So that's my divine message for you today. And today we're talking about the lost art of friendship and 5 ways to recapture the magic. Friendship is not a word you hear very often, especially if you're an entrepreneur. You're not really spending time thinking about friendship, right? You're spending time thinking about your business and money and how you can fit in your self-care and what about that relationship and when was the last time I've been on a date night and oh yeah, I need to go connect with some other entrepreneurs so we can co-create and connect and collaborate and blah, 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 right? Now, for a moment, I want to take you back to your childhood when you were 8 years old or 10 years old or 15 years old, and remember what was most important to you then, right? Remember how important your friends were. Sometimes in negative ways, sometimes in positive ways, and everything in between. But your friends were like everything. Remember? It's like, oh, I need to spend time with my friend, and we just share secrets and we do things together. And regardless of where your life was, regardless of where you were living, there was always the importance of that friend, that connection, that finding that soul connection with somebody, whether it's over a shared, disdain for a teacher, whether you're best friends because you happen to live 2 doors down, whether you met through family, friends, doesn't matter, right? Doesn't matter. I mean, usually proximity creates your friendships at that point. In my life, I moved quite a bit. We moved to America when I was 6 years old, and then every 2 years we moved until I was about 12. So my best friends were pretty much location dependent. Wherever I was, I remember feeling as soon as I found that friend, like for me, it was always about having a small circle of really good friends, usually one best friend and then maybe 2 or 3 others who were sort of like in that inner circle. That's just how I roll. I've always had small groups of really good friends in different areas of my life. I prefer that very much to having a bunch of acquaintances, though I do know a lot of people. I don't get very intimate other than my very close circle of friends. And it's interesting because I see my son sort of unfolding his life the same way. And my husband, in fact, as well. We're both all 3 of us are very interested in and connected with a small circle of intimate connections. And it's really fascinating because everyone is so different, right? But I think no matter where you were raised or how you were raised, like for me, because I moved every 2 years, I found that pretty soon after I moved to a new place, I would connect with definitely a few people and a bunch of, acquaintances and friends because of class and where I lived. But there was always that one connection, right? Like when I lived in New Jersey for a couple of years, it was Jennifer. Then I moved to Brooklyn, back to Brooklyn actually, and it was Claire. And then I moved to another place in Brooklyn and it was my best friend, Irene. And she's still one of my most incredible friends that we don't talk very often. And now when I moved back to California, or when I moved to California, it was Gabriella. And I've always had like other amazing friends as well, but there's always that like one person who your heart just connects with. And it's going to be a lifelong connection. Of course, now it's so much easier to stay connected with Facebook and texting and such. But I can remember the things that made friendship so beautiful is that when you're with that person, you can, especially then, like I'm a little sad for even, some of the friendship connections now for young people because it's so digital, right? Which has its own benefits for sure. But I remember like just wanting to be physically together, right? We wanted to play, we wanted to walk and explore. And we explored some dangerous territory sometimes, trying things that our parents didn't know about, from cigarettes to going places we weren't allowed to. I started going to clubs in New York City when I was very young because I looked older than I really was. Just those kind of adventures that you look back on and you just laugh and laugh. And we just, have these fond, like sentimental connections that will bond us forever. And I can remember, friendship in my teens and my 20s, it started to evolve into more elevated conversations about life and philosophy, like with my friend Gabriella. We are still extremely connected. It's been over 20 years now. And we started out our friendship by just laughing and laughing. And we just knew we were going to be friends forever. And it was this real deep soul connection. And of course, when you're younger, without kids and partners and jobs and travel, your main focus can really be your friends. It can be, what are we doing this weekend? And let's get together for lunch and let's go for a walk. And it's very easy to maintain those physical connections because you have more time, right? Like I look back, I'm like, what the heck did I do with all that time? Oh, I spent it with my friends. That's right. And now, now that I'm in my 40s and have a middle schooler who we homeschool, and I have a partner, with my husband, we've been together for nearly 19 years now. And I've got moms of my son's friends, and I've got like friends who I've met because where I live, and just like layers and layers of people in my life, not even starting to talk about my business friendships and collaborations and people that I've met on this entrepreneurial journey, right? There's so many people in my life, but still it comes down to friendship, right? Like who are the people that you can connect with and turn to in those times where you need to have a good cry, or you need to celebrate, or you need to really just sit across from someone and talk and listen and be heard, and just create that heart connection. And I think the art of friendship has died in some ways because it has been overrun by the ability to get a quick fix, to text someone and connect in that way. Now, here's the thing. It's a double-edged sword because I love texting. I love the fact that I can text my friends from wherever they live and just say, hey, I'm thinking about you, or send a funny GIF, or send a funny picture, or hey, I heard this song and thought of you. And those are beautiful ways to stay connected. They really and truly are. Now, the other side of that double-edged sword is that it sometimes gives you an easy out from actually making that call and actually meeting that person in person, sitting across from them at a table, sharing a cup of coffee. Well, not the same cup of coffee, but over coffee or tea or whatever, or going for a walk, or really investing time, because we're so trained to have an ROI, a return on investment on our time, that we forget that the return on investment in friendships is invaluable. You can't measure it. It feeds your soul in a way that many other things don't, in a very specific way, to connect with another woman or man and to have this beautiful space, this co-created space where you're listening, really listening hard, and then you're being listened to, and you laugh together, and you tear up together, and you share memories together, and you plan together. It's just this way of connecting to someone that is a lost art, because we have this way of connecting quickly. And so for me, someone who can really get lost in writing my book and creating my podcast and doing my business and running my membership and planning and marketing and all the stuff that needs to get done, and connecting with people online, it can really create this facade of busyness and this facade of, not real life connections, right? So I want to invite you to really consider these 5 ways to recapture the magic of friendship in your own life, and to not make it so overcomplicated, because I think that's where we get lost. We think, oh, we're going to host a dinner, or we're going to host a potluck, or we're going to host a celebration. And then it becomes this thing that you have to fit into your life, instead of making it simple, which is one of the things that I'm going to invite you to do, is keep it really, really simple. And don't feel like you have to clean your house and do the dishes and set a table and cook a meal. Those things are great. They're awesome, but they're not requirements of friendship, right? Friendship is simply a presence, your full presence, your eye contact, your energetic oneness, where you are in the moment, really listening to the other, where you're not distracted. So I want to share with you these 5 simple tips to inspire you to think about what would it be like to really put friendship on your list over the next week, 2 weeks, month, year. Maybe this could be the year of friendship for you, because the dividends that you receive from connecting with your friends is feeling connected. In fact, I would say in this modern era where suicides number in the dozens, where people feel more alone than ever, where there's so much emphasis on how you look and what you weigh and what you're wearing and what you're driving, and that it all becomes sort of empty without those connections in your life, right? All those things are amazing. I love my car, and I love my clothes, and I love the trips I get to take, and I love all that stuff. It's beautiful. But it's so much more beautiful and so much more meaningful and rich and deep when I have those friends in my life that I know I can turn to in times of sadness and in times of joy. I think sometimes we sort of wait until something's going wrong to really call our friends and be like, I need some help, if you are even open to doing that, right? That's a hard thing to do. I know, speaking for myself, asking for help is something that I really have to cultivate. I really have to remind myself that people do want to help. I teach it really well, but I teach it because it's something I need to practice. But what about celebrations? Calling that friend and celebrating, or just saying, let's celebrate something. Let's go for a walk. Let's just celebrate being together. Like really creating that as a habit, right? So here are 5 ways that you can reestablish and recapture the magic of friendship. And the fact that you're even listening and the fact that your heart is open to this conversation means that there's something about it, about friendship, that is starting to feel like something that you want to add to your life. And if you don't feel like you have any good friends at the moment, or maybe you moved to a new place, or maybe you're just looking to meet new people, that's beautiful. You can create new relationships with the intention of creating lasting friendships. And sometimes it can feel a little weird, like dating, right? Is this the right person? I don't know. So you just have to stay open to friendships coming from places maybe you didn't expect. Like really noticing, is there someone that you've been meaning to connect with? It could be a neighbor. It could be someone that you see at the coffee shop. It could be someone who's in a class next to you. Like you just never know. You never know, but you have to be willing to take the risk and to put yourself out there. And remember, this is what I have to remember, is that people are so busy that sometimes they will say no a few times, or they just can't, you can't make it work, but stay with it. Stay diligent. And this doesn't have to be like, a super hyper type A personality project. It's just an intention, which brings me to the first step, one of the ways to recapture the magic. First of all, set the intention to have friendship as one of the things you want to focus on in your life. Have friendship as something that you want to really cultivate and curate in your life. And this could be just a matter of saying like, yeah, I really want to focus on making time for friendship. That's step 1, right? Because without focus, without intention, without intentionally going out there and really knowing that you want to make friendship part of your life, something that you want to maintain and nurture and curate, is not going to happen, right? So first of all, setting the intention. Number 2, and this is what I had to do for myself as well, is not simply wait for someone to invite you to something, which could be something that happens to you all the time, maybe not, but everyone else is as busy as you think you are, right? So, and I say think you are because we're not as busy as we really think we are, but we actually end up filling our lives with a lot of stuff. But that's for another episode. We're going to do a busyness detox episode in the future. But everyone is this sort of quote unquote busy because we're filling our life with too much like just stuff, right? So become the inviter. That's step 2. Become the inviter. Practice this as a habit. Really become someone who reaches out. Make that call. You want to do it via text? That's fine. Do it via text or email, whatever. But go ahead and make a conscious effort to invite 1 or 2 friends out for a walk, out for tea, invite them over for a glass of wine, whatever you want to do, doesn't matter. But something where you will have sort of peaceful, quiet-ish time to connect, not just go sit and watch a movie because, yeah, that's fun, but you're not really connecting, right? Create a vision board party, or like just 1 or 2 of you, or just, I don't know, go for a walk around a lake, or just go sit next to a lake on a blanket with some fruit and, water and just talk. Keep it really, really simple. So make it a habit for you to become the inviter. And do this on a regular basis. Give your friends the benefit of the doubt of being busy as well. So just say, hey, that's, it doesn't work this time, but let's try another time. And just really be conscious of it. Don't do it as a test of friendship, because I see some women doing that. But just really know that everyone has their own busy lives, and that you can actually even share, maybe even send an email or a group text to several friends and say, hey, I'm really focused on nourishing friendships in the next, coming months. And I really want to make time to do some sort of girlfriend dates, maybe a night out or something like that. Let them know, because you might just spark something in them as well you can also share this podcast episode with them and say, hey, what do you think of this? Are you open? Is this something that you're interested in too, in cultivating a friendship? Or maybe friends who you haven't seen for a while, right? Like, go ahead and share this episode with them, because there's nothing more powerful than women on a mission, right? So if you get a couple of friends to really think about this topic, then you can all really do this together, okay? Number 3, again, I already mentioned, is keep it super simple. Don't overcomplicate it. You don't have to host a masquerade ball to have a friend. You can just simply go out for breakfast, or you can go for a walk, or put some cookies on the table. Like, our culture is so over freaking complicated. You don't have to hire a house cleaner and have a perfect home and clean the garage in order to invite a friend over. Like, seriously, put a chair out on the front lawn, put 2 chairs out, and grab a bottle of sparkly water, put a wedge of lemon in it, and call it a day. Like, have just time to connect. Don't overcomplicate it. That keeps more friendships from being developed than anything else, because becomes this like one-upmanship thing. If you host a beautiful dinner that's super gorgeous and everything's perfect, then the person thinks that they have to do the same when they invite you over. It's simply not true. Keep it super simple. In fact, whatever you were going to do, invite yourself to like do even less because the point is to look the other person in the eye, to face them, to be fully present, to not be distracted with doing stuff and slicing cucumbers and whatever, right? You want to be fully present. Just sit and talk, or walk and talk. It fills up your soul in such a gorgeous way. You walk away feeling connected. You walk away feeling joyful. You walk away feeling like people who have other people who love them in their lives feel. And that is priceless. So keep it super simple. Number 4 is practice listening. Like, sometimes we overcomplicate getting together with friends. You get nervous thinking you have to ask the right questions and you have to be super smart and informed and talk about politics. Who cares? Who cares? Like, I've heard other women in my life talk about like, oh, I really want to have smart conversations about politics and whatever. I'm like, who cares? Get together, talk about what's real. If politics is what's real and you want to talk about social justice and racism and wars, and that's what you want to talk about, go for it. What I'm saying here is don't overcomplicate it, right? Practice listening to the other person. Just see what they want to talk about. It's not about you. Keep it about your friend, and your friend in turn will feel that, and then keep it about you, and you'll both have a chance to share what's alive for you, what's going on in your lives, because who cares about solving the world's problems when you feel alone at your core, right? When you're feeling connected to other people, your compassion, your heart, your generosity grows, and from that place you can start to affect change in the world that's meaningful to you. If you're someone who's feeling alone in your life and bitter about it and resentful and feeling like you have no one to share with, how can you give to other people? How can you give to a cause you believe in? How can you give your time to something else? You're giving from a place of emptiness, and that can cultivate nothing but anger and resentment. And from that place, you are no friend to yourself or anyone else. So practice listening. One thing I really love to say, and I'm really good at listening, I have to say I've cultivated my listening ability really well, because I used to be someone who really just wanted to talk and be right and just, be a debater. And I realized that I love the feeling of being listened to. There's something about somebody who really looks you square in the face and just learns. In fact, my husband was one of my greatest teachers of this. I grew up pretty distracted in my life, meaning I've always had the TV on, and I grew up as a latchkey kid, and I've always had noise, right? And when I met him and we started dating and got married, I remember this one time where we were getting into some debate we were trying to figure something out. It was getting a little heated, and I was facing the TV, and we were sitting sort of side by side looking at the TV talking. And finally he's like, you know what, just turn off the TV, like turn your body towards me, look in my eyes, and let's talk. And I remember having this real acute moment of discomfort, but also of like, wow, he's totally right. Like I was I was splitting my attention, not even like, I don't even remember, who cares what was on the TV, but I was sort of splitting myself and I was keeping myself safe and not getting intimate with this person that I love and adore. And so the same thing can happen with our friends. We find ourselves texting while we are connecting. We find ourselves looking around. We find ourselves sort of distracted and, because intimacy can feel very vulnerable. And we're so used to connecting on Facebook where we can just comment and like and love and walk away. You can't do that when you're sitting across from someone. You're like a real person with real emotions, and they fluctuate. And sometimes you cry and sometimes you laugh. And that can be really, really vulnerable, especially when you're developing a friendship and learning who to trust and how to learn to trust again, maybe in a time where you've been burned before. Maybe you've had a friend who disappointed you and you haven't really taken time to, really see your own role in that situation. So your own spiritual journey, as it unfolds, your friendships can get so much more powerful because it's not about blaming or shaming or resenting or, oh, she never called me back. You start really claiming your place in an adult, mature relationship. In fact, one of the books that I recommend to women, especially women who are dealing with friendship issues and partnership issues, is The 4 Agreements, because it really teaches you to not take anything personally and to not assume and to be impeccable with your word and to always do your best. And if those are tenets that you embrace, especially the don't take it personally and don't assume, I mean, those 2 alone have changed my relationships forever, because so much of the disagreements and miscommunications are about people, A, taking things personally, and B, assuming that they know what the other person's thinking, instead of asking the simple question, which is practice in listening and asking, tell me more, or what do you mean by that? That's probably my number one asked question. What do you mean by that? Because when you hear someone say something and in your ego mind, you're thinking already, oh, they must mean da 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 da, and they think this, and you're starting to already argue with them in your mind. Instead of going there, you can say, what do you mean by that? Because sometimes you heard something, but that is not what they intended to say, right? So I can't even imagine how many relationships, how many marriages, how many friendships could be saved if so many more people just ask the question, what do you mean by that? And not take it personally. So if you haven't read that book, head on over. You can actually find it on my resources page, elenalipson.com/resources. You can also find it on Amazon. It's called The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. It's recommended, and you have to read it if you're working with me, because that's really where we start, right? Okay, so that's number 4. And number 5 is friends and technology don't mix. They are great for sending an invitation, sending a text, sending an email, clarifying details of how you're going to meet, etc., right? But in general, when you are connecting with a friend, sitting at a table, keep it a technology-free zone. There are so many statistics that show that even having a phone on the table already creates a lack of intimacy, because at any moment that phone can ring. At any moment that phone can beep and take you away from the moment, right? Whereas, if at least the phones are in your purse and turned off or silent, at least you won't be looking at it. The chances of you reaching in are much lower, right? Unless you have this terrible addiction, which I know for sure I've worked on cultivating the opposite. So as much as you can, of course, if you have a babysitter and someone's watching your kid, of course you're going to check in. Totally understandable. But if you're constantly looking at it while the other person's talking or while you're talking, it's going to diminish the capacity to go deep. It just is. It just is. No excuses. I hear what you're thinking. It just stops the intimacy. So just test it out for yourself. Don't take my word for it, right? When next time you're sitting across from someone, feel the difference where the phone is either in the other room or turned off completely, or it's in your purse and you just sort of, sit on it so you're not tempted to check it. So let's go ahead and review. 5 ways to recapture the magic of the lost art of friendship. Number 1, set the intention to reconnect. Number 2, become the inviter. Number 3, Keep it super simple. Don't overcomplicate it. Your friends don't need you to set a classical, magazine-worthy table in order for you to invite them over. Just simply go for a walk, go for coffee. Keep it super simple. Number 4, practice the art of listening. Ask questions. Tell me more. What do you mean by that? And do it in a way that you are fully present, right? You're not doing something else. You're not multitasking. Just really bring your entire physical, emotional, and spiritual body to the conversation. And number 5, friends and technology do not mix, right? They do mix for setting up the details of the gathering, but not for actually being in the moment and listening. So those are the 5 ways to recapture the magic. There's so much more I have to say on this topic, but this is a great place to start because we are living in a time where you can literally sit at home for a month or more and never leave the house. You can order food, you can run your business, you can connect with people on video. You don't ever have to leave your house, but we're simply not wired that way for long-term health and wellness. You are meant to be with other people. You are meant to connect. There's something that happens in the physical energy, which is why so much of my business is online. And I make it a point to make sure that I host in-person events, that I host retreats, that I do VIP weekends, because something about being in person with my clients and the women that I adore is magical. It's transformative. It's just everything, right? So I hope you've gotten something out of this. I hope you're inspired to connect with friends old and new. And again, share this episode with a few people that you want to connect with, because if they listen and they feel the same, boom, you got intention setters. And when you have more than one person, you have 2 people, 3 people setting the same intention, now you've got quantum magic happening. So I invite you to connect with a friend today. Personal challenge for you. Become the inviter. Let's, as a society, as women, recapture the lost art of friendship and become someone who connects. Become someone who's known as a great listener. Become someone who really nurtures and curates and creates friendships with meaning. I guarantee you, your life will be better for it. All right. I'd love to know what you think about this episode. Please leave me a review. Subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. Share it with some friends you want to connect with. Go ahead and do it. Do it now. Don't forget. This is important stuff, okay? Being with other people, connecting, knowing that you're well connected with some beautiful friends in times of joy and sorrow is magical. It's everything. It's everything. All right, go out there and connect. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Divine Self-Care Meditations and Musings podcast. This is your friend, Elena. I'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for listening and learning about the new Divine Self-Care way of being in your life, business, and the bedroom based on the divine feminine metrics of success: pleasure, play, ease, grace, and a slower pace. If you're ready to bust the myth of overwhelm and tap into an inspired start to each day, I've put together a free video series for you to help you start each day with energy, inspiration, and ignite that inner pilot light which attracts joy, magic, and synchronicity. You can access my 3-step magic morning practice to help you ignite your inner light and attract the abundance that you're craving. Head on over to elenalipson.com/gift. And if you enjoyed this episode, I would so love if you share it with a friend, a sister, a mother, a daughter, and please leave a review. That is how the magic starts to ripple out. Here's wishing you a day full of beauty, magic, and divine self-care. I'll see you next time at the Meditations and Musings podcast.